Hi, my name is Crystal Cavanis. Welcome to today's live learning session on email marketing from churches from United Methodist Communications. Thank you for joining us. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Jane Massey. Jane is the email marketing specialist here at United Methodist Communications. Thank you, Jane, for joining us.
Nice to be here, Crystal.
Today we'll talk about how to incorporate emails into your church communications. Over the next half hour or so, our intention is to cover everything from the basics of building an email list and getting started to upping your email game with things such as graphics and working with an email service provider. During the course of the webinar, we invite you to send us your questions and we'll get to as many as we can. Okay, let's get started. Jane, why do I want to incorporate email into my church communications plan?
Well, email is the most trusted, personal, and audience preferred way of contact for organizations and nonprofits to reach their contacts. According to studies last year, email is preferred across all age groups, including millennials, which is kind of surprising. Marketers are increasingly redirecting their budgets toward email campaigns because it's more profitable for them. As a church, we're not necessarily interested in profit, but we are needing to remain aware of what's commercially and trend aware about what is working. And right now, back to the basics are working, which is email. I just want to mention that the Wall Street Journal's technology editor wrote just last week, "The emerging medium of choice to reach audiences with the only guaranteed delivery option the internet has left today is email."
Well, that's a really good endorsement for email,
Yes,
isn't
it
it?
is.
So as a church, what would I use email for?
Email should be a part of your regular communications mix. It works equally well for sending basic announcements or more complex automated campaigns. Statistics show that more than 3 billion people have active email accounts right now. And most people are checking their notifications as many as 15 to 30 times a day. So your people are already there, and including including email in your communications plan is very important. The playbook of the past is not as effective anymore. So the time is now to adapt and to innovate to meet the needs of an increasingly digital culture. There are degrees of complexity in whatever email approach you take. Novices can start small with something like regular prayer announcements, or your pastor may do a weekly devotional. Expand your efforts only as time and skills allow.
So it sounds like as a church you might be sending out an email just from your church email address. Maybe your pastor sends that out with prayer requests, announcements, and things like that, text only. And then as it evolves, you can add graphics and perhaps incorporate an email service provider.
Exactly. Yeah, I would start small, always start small, and small churches, what you just described, is ideal. Just sending a basic email with 3 to 5 news summaries and sending it from your church account. The next level up, though, may be using email templates, and you may be doing email newsletters, usually with links referring to your website or your social media posts for more information. You can include welcome emails for visitors or even new members. The more advanced approach, though, is more based and focused on the interests of your subscribers, and it may involve a little bit more of list segmentation and simple automation.
We'll talk a little bit more about that as the webinar progresses. Right. But let's talk about how our email might intersect with social media. At my church, for instance, we're a small church. We have about 70 to 80 at worship. And we use what we're calling this classic email approach from our church email address. We're sending out prayer requests, but we're also putting that information on our Facebook group. And we're not talking about Facebook today per se, but that's how we're doing it, as well as putting that information up on screens during our worship service before the service. So can you talk a little bit how you might incorporate your social media or other outreach methods?
Well, marketers often refer to the rule of 3, which basically says that people have to encounter your message at least 3 times before they actually process it. So what your church is doing is just right. Email can work hand in hand with your social media posts to get your message out. I like to think of it as almost like a relay race. One hands off to the other. Since social media feeds scroll by so quickly, an email linking to an important post may be your only guarantee that your followers see it.
Great. Well, we are getting your questions. Thank you so much, and we will be answering those as we kind of move through the webinar. Let's just kind of start at the beginning. How do you build an email list?
First of all, make sure you don't already have a number of emails in a file stuck somewhere that's been unused, because a lot of the attendance pads and cards already have a place for them to fill that out. But let's just assume you're starting from scratch, and the best way to start is by simply asking. You can begin a campaign by making an announcement from the pulpit, making an appeal in your bulletin or your newsletter. You certainly should add a sign-up form on your website, your About Us page, and even on your blog or your Facebook page. In your requests, you just need to be clear about what types of emails they can expect and how often.
So once I build that email list, what's next?
You just need to consider what types of messages you have to share. Know your church audience and the information they need from you. Think about what you already share in your bulletins, on your social media. There will always need to be a one-off urgent email, but for the rest, try to consolidate as much as possible. Plan content that people will want to open and read at a frequency they can tolerate.
You know, at our church, we are having those conversations about how we add maybe an e-newsletter using graphics and things like that, talking about email service providers that we might use. Can you talk us through advancing to that next level?
Sure. Well, upgrading your email ministry doesn't require coding or marketing knowledge, really. It doesn't even involve a high cost. Services like MailChimp and Constant Contact are free package, offer free packages, as well as upgraded ones with more functionality for as little as $10 a month. A more pricier advanced option is Emma, which would be more ideal for a larger church. But all of these services and companies offer a great library of email templates that are very professionally designed and clean, as well as tools for easy subscriber management and list building. The email editor is very simple and intuitive. You just drag and drop blocks in to add text or images. They have web form builders, so that will help you get new subscribers. Really, it couldn't be any more easier.
Well, Michael on Facebook was asking about MailChimp, and Michael, we sure hope that helped. It sounds like that could be an option for you. So are there some best practices when we're doing these emails?
Yes, there are. And if you use MailChimp or Constant Contact or Emma or any of the other services, most of the best practices are already baked in. They're already built in, and they will guide you through them. But some basics to always keep in mind relate to privacy and design. The most important thing is you must have permission to email people, and you must respect and protect their privacy. It's not okay to assume and add people to your email list and then send them email without their permission. In fact, it's illegal to do so. So related to that, you need to make it easy for people to subscribe, unsubscribe, or update their email addresses as needed, and do that with every email that you send. As people are wanting to sign up, you should only ask them for the basic required information, which is their first name, last name, and email address. As you advance, you may want to add optional information like their birthday or content interests. Moving on to design, email newsletters in particular need to be very short, with 3 to 5 stories at the most. We all have shorter attention spans these days, and lots competing for our time and attention, so just stick with a clean design with basic formatting to make your email easily skimmable, with headers, short articles of 2 to 3 sentences, bulleted lists if possible, easy to spot calls to actions, that means links, with lots of white space in between articles.
When you talk about these links, then that's content that's linking to your website, is that right?
To your website, even to your social media posts, or even your blog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, those are some great best practices. Are there some things that you should avoid?
To be a broken record about privacy, the first relates to it. Never share your email lists or ask another church or organization for their email lists. That's just a privacy issue and legal issue you don't even want to cross. Other than that, sending too many emails too often is the #1 reason why people unsubscribe. It's you just need to choose quality over quantity. Most businesses, in fact, send no more than 2 to 3 emails on average to their contacts per month. There are exceptions for churches since there are urgent messages that need to get out, but I'm just giving you a best practice.
Sure. And Wendy on Facebook is asking that question, how do you balance the volume of emails that you're sending out so that you're not bombarding people? And when you use that 2 to 3 per month number, Jane, you're really talking about designed emails that are
Yes.
coming from a service provider such as MailChimp or Constant Contact, not as much from those kind of more classic emails from your
Exactly.
church.
Urgent messages need to get out as quickly as they possibly can, but I'm talking about mainly email newsletters. You wouldn't want to have an email newsletter going out necessarily weekly.
Right, sure.
Who has time for that?
That's right. We have this question, Tim has asked this question, and we were going to talk about it anyway, that there is a perception that people over a certain age don't use email or maybe don't understand email. But Jane, you've been telling me that there's some data that disputes that. Can you tell us about that?
Right. Pew Research in 2017 did some surveys, and they found that 67% of all adults over 65 and older are very active and regularly online and using smartphones increasingly. The number's only going up, so we can no longer make assumptions about who's online, whether it's by age or location. Of course, every church community is unique, and you know your memberships better than I. Ministry should be to all, and so you need to put systems in place to reach those who may not be online while still serving those who are.
Well, just again, to use my church as an example, we have found that, and we do have a large portion of our congregation it would be in this age group, this demographic, and only 5 people don't have email, which is a much higher percentage than the data even
Yes.
suggests. And so what we've done in that case, we have a system in place where those folks get a telephone call so that they're always kept in the loop. We have a team that calls them, so those folks are in the loop with the information all of the
great.
time. So to use my own example, since that's what I know best, I'm a volunteer at my church, and I hear you talking about this, and I'm thinking, well, how much time is this going to take?
Well, most of your time will be spent in the early stages. A lot of decisions have to be made about what approach you have the time for, who's going to manage it, how you gather or update your lists and permissions, deciding on an email service and template. As I said earlier, I recommend you start small. And depending on the email service provider you use, much of what I've just mentioned can be set up in a matter of days. But what you need to do, though, is take time to learn the service you've selected by building and sending test emails to yourself. See what the templates you've selected for various messages looks like on your desktop computer as well as on your phone or your tablet, because you want it to be mobile friendly. And when you're ready, just send an email to your subscribers announcing your new look or plans for email. From that point on, it's just the time you spend is what you regularly would gathering news.
Right, getting the content together. Jane, I've heard you talk about the golden rule of email. Can you share that with our audience?
Sure, it's respect your subscribers' inbox. Send the right message to the right people at the right time, consistently, but at a tolerable frequency. Remember how you feel when you open your inbox and it's exploding with mass emails. So just do unto others.
Which is always good advice.
Yes.
So some churches, and we're having some questions come in from our audience today, and thank you so much for sending those questions. Some churches have more sophisticated email marketing plans already in place, and they may be ready for next steps, such as getting metrics or on who's reading what content. Can we talk about measuring and metrics for those people who are at that level?
Sure. Deliverability is actually the most important measurement because it means your list is clean, or in plain English, that you have current email addresses where people are receiving your emails with few to little bounces, and that means undelivered emails. Ideally, your deliverability rate should be in the 95 or up percentage.
That means that 95% of the people you're sending it to are
actually receiving it.
Okay.
That's to prevent internet service providers like Outlook and Yahoo, for instance, from blocking your emails or just redirecting your emails to a junk folder somewhere. Low deliverability lowers your credibility in their eyes. So, but I understand that most people are interested and concerned with opens and clicks. Opens may seem clear-cut, but it gets a little complicated. For instance, most email clients offer an inbox preview of emails with images automatically blocked. Some email providers don't count that as an open until the images are downloaded. So your opens may be impacted by that. But industry standards for religious nonprofits have an open rate of about 26% or more. When someone reads your email and clicks a link within it to get more information, that's a click-through. And that's a truer indication of interest and engagement than opens. For religious nonprofits, the average email click-through rate is between 5 and 7%.
So that means about 5 to 7% of people are reading through to your content.
Correct.
So how can you improve those metrics?
It's the little things that matter. You need to get creative with your content and test things. Just think, the first thing your subscriber sees is your subject line. That's the point where they decide whether they're going to open your email or just send it to the trash. You can improve your opens by keeping your subject lines short and relevant, but somewhat beguiling or captivating. Some other simple things that you wouldn't imagine could help, but do. You're writing the subject line as a question, personalizing it by using the recipient's first name, or using even sentence case capitalizations for some reason makes a difference. That means only the first letter of the first word is capitalized. You just need to feel free to test things. And while you want your audience to open and read your emails, the next step is to encourage them to click a link. To understand how effective your emails are, you need at least one linked call to action in each email. Instead of just linking text like read more, make your links stand out by using a call to action button that most of the email service providers already have available for you. Make the text on the button relevant to the content and write it in the active voice. So for instance, sign up for Saturday's picnic is more enticing and engaging than just learn more.
Sure. We've got some questions coming in, Jane, about the use of personalizing your email and then also attaching PDFs. And we've talked about that as far as a best practice to use, right?
Exactly.
A best practice to how to avoid that. So can you talk about what that means when you do attach PDFs?
Well, first of all, PDFs can often become corrupted as they're sent in transit, and there's no way of knowing who that is going to affect. But most importantly, a lot of your internet service providers, again, like Yahoo and Gmail and Outlook even, they automatically block emails that just have an attachment in it, because that's how a lot of spammers do their business. And so you want to avoid all appearances of being spam. And finally, it just really doesn't help you collect any data about what content is working, because there's really no click-through except downloading the PDF from the inbox, and you have no idea if anybody's even opened it or read it.
Well, let's talk about spam a little bit more. We've got some questions. Rick and Dawn on Facebook are asking that we talk about how many addresses to put in the to section of the email. And let's get back up a little bit and talk about that classic level of email and really the best practices for how you do send those emails out.
Right. Well, I recommend for smaller churches using their church Outlook, for instance, or Gmail. It's fine for them to go ahead and include their subscribers' email addresses in one of the fields, but it really shouldn't be the to field. It should be the BCC field. That's to protect the privacy of your subscribers. Send it to your church address instead of the whole list. I'd also recommend that if you have more than 50 contacts that you split up your list and just only put 50 contacts or email addresses in the BCC and then send it again to the next 50. Because that's, again, another way that the internet service providers see mass emails going out to a lot of people using these services as potential spam.
So that's going to doing it that way is going to take care of the spam issue potentially,
yes,
and also take care of the privacy issue.
Exactly.
Okay. Great. Well, we have some more questions here. Let's see what we came in on the chat box. I find most millennials use text messaging. Is there a way to forward a group email to a text?
Ooh, that is a very good question. To be honest, I've not ever had to try that, but I would not really suggest it, because a lot of the times millennials want to keep that text and Snapchat and Instagram even, they prefer to keep that among their friends and not have businesses or even organizations they value coming into that space. As I mentioned earlier, the research we're hearing is that millennials actually prefer receiving the emails from organizations they trust.
Okay. Here's another question. Can we import our emails from CCIS so that we don't have to input each one when using an email service provider?
By that, I would think you're talking about some format that perhaps can be taken into Excel. Mm-hmm. And then, yes, most of the providers that I mentioned, MailChimp or Constant Contact, they're very Excel friendly. Yeah, so that's no problem.
Easy import functionality.
Exactly.
Right. This person says we use MailChimp for our email marketing, and but it does seem limited. What are some other marketing platforms that are popular within church communication? It sounds like they're maybe ready for this next level.
The next level, I'd say, is Emma. Emma is very robust. It offers a lot of different options, and it also accommodates much larger lists. Most of the email providers, though, that I mentioned, MailChimp or Constant Contact, have upgraded packages that are competing a lot with Emma. So just check into the options you have with MailChimp or any of your provider, but always know that you can grow from there. Emma is good. ExactTarget is also good.
This is what I suspect could be a common question. This person says our newsletter is 6 pages long, and I tried using MailChimp and would have a very, very long email with a lot of work to make all the website links. What do you recommend?
First of all, I think it's wonderful that you have a lot of content and a lot of news, obviously, but I do think that if you were to check your metrics, probably you're losing people after a little while. I would hope that you could not put full articles, but as I say, tease articles by only having 2 to 3 sentences, and then have a click-through link or call to action button that takes you elsewhere for the fuller story, whether that's on your Facebook page or your blog or your website. I just hope you can consolidate and make it have fewer stories per issue, if possible.
Okay. This person's asking, I've had problems with my email list being thought of as spam. How do I correct that problem? We've given a few suggestions on how that might be remedied.
Right.
Putting those email addresses in the BCC.
Right. And let me add too, you might want to contact your service provider. If you're using MailChimp or Constant Contact, but certainly Emma and ExactTarget, they have representatives on staff who can contact the providers and make sure you're not gray listed. Usually a lot of times churches may find themselves gray listed because they've put too many email addresses in the to field, and the ISPs just think they're spammers.
Let's see. Is MailTrax a good way to measure your metrics?
I'm not familiar with that because we use a service called Marketo that has everything already included in it, and certainly MailChimp and Constant Contact and ExactTarget have that. So I may have to do a little more research, and if you want to email me, my information will be up at the end. I'll try to do some digging around on that and let you know.
This person asked, when a visitor fills out an attendance form, is it illegal to add them to your email list without their permission? Should a statement giving permission be added to every attendance form so that people understand by giving that information that they're giving permission to be added to a church email list?
Certainly, yes. You have to be explicit about that. And I would think if they are providing their email address that they may suspect that you're going to be in contact with them, but the days are gone when you can assume. You need to be explained. You will receive occasional emails from us if you provide your email address.
Okay. Let's see, let me scroll over these questions again real quickly. While I'm looking at those, I do want to remind everyone that we have past webinar videos at umcom.org/learn/webinars for church leaders, where there's a wealth of information. There's some questions coming in about the best content to use for your emails. And I don't know if that's something that we want to talk about today. That could probably be an entirely another webinar
Exactly.
on how do you develop the best content for effective communications. So I don't know that we dig into that
Not
topic,
today.
but it's a great question. And I think that we're probably, that looks like all the questions that we have gotten. Some more may be coming in, and if so, Jane, we are going to put her email address up in a minute. Jane, obviously, as we're learning from the questions that are coming in our conversation today, there's a lot to know and learn about email marketing, and it's changing all the time. Can you give us some tips for how to stay up to date on email marketing best practices?
Sure. Well, MyCom has is an email newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks that offers comprehensive communication tips and tools. We also have a podcast, MyCom Podcast, and you can subscribe to both of those on umcom.org. I've mentioned Emma once before, once or twice or 3 times before. They have a great blog. If you just go to myemma.com, it's updated regularly, and they cover almost every topic you can imagine. It's a good one to refer to. And there's another website called Campaign Monitor, and that's just campaignmonitor.com. That has a great glossary of email terms, and as well as lessons on what you can do with email. So I would recommend those.
Well, Jane, thank you for being with us today and for all of this great and helpful information. We hope today's live learning session on email marketing for church communications has been helpful for you. We thank you for joining us. If we didn't get to your question or you have additional questions, feel free to email Jane. That's jmassey@umcom.org. And we hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.